Imagine being a shell of a man, alive, but barely, drifting through the world with no purpose, no hope, no reason to return, except for one. And then one day, the only person who tethered you back to life is taken. Not lost, not missing, snatched away in the most violent, traumatic way imaginable. What would you do? What would you become? When I watched The Man from Nowhere about 10 years ago, I walked away convinced I'd just seen the ultimate don't mess with this guy movie. A quiet assassin, a brutal world, a man you absolutely shouldn't have crossed. The action was sharp, the story was tight, and the payoff hit exactly where it needed to. But perspective is a wild thing. Now I'm married with a 5-year-old daughter who loves to call up in my arms at the most convenient and inconvenient times, and suddenly this film feels completely different. Rewatching it now, I can't believe how much I overlooked. On this episode of Time Compass, I'm revisiting The Man from Nowhere, not as a cool action film I once saw, but as a story about grief, innocence, and the quiet ways people save each other. One of the first scenes that hit me differently comes early on. So-mi is being questioned by police officers. Overwhelmed, dismissed, even struck with a bag. Tae-sik is walking home, returning from mourning the anniversary of his wife and unborn child. When an officer asks So-mi if she has an adult in her life, So-mi spots Tae-sik returning. Tae-sik sees her in need and watches out of curiosity. The officer asks whether he is her father, and she nods and points a finger at him. And Tae-sik walks away. It's a tiny moment, but one that carries enormous emotional weight when you see it through older eyes. Because, for context, So-mi's mother is drowning in addiction, unstable relationships, and her own unresolved pain. Tae-sik's pawn shop becomes the only safe space she knows. He's the one adult who listens. She is the only one who makes him laugh. There is an unhealthy bond, perhaps formed by a need for connection, a bond that makes her the only one close enough to paint his nails. So when he walks away in that moment, it isn't just about hesitation. It's the breaking of a fragile bond. Later that evening, she confronts him. He hands her the headphones, and she gives him a drawing of a dark knight on a horse instead of payment. With tears rolling down her face, she explains that her mother once told her if she ever got lost, she should throw away her address and phone number because no one will come looking for her anyway. She isn't just giving him a picture, she's letting go of a symbol. She's telling him that despite how she viewed him as a protector, a guardian, someone she believed in more than anyone else, she could no longer trust that to be true. In that moment, she believes that he didn't show up for her when she needed him. Shortly after that, she disappears, swallowed by the underworld of organized crime. Tae-sik realizes he didn't just fail to protect another child, he failed the one person who gave him a reason to live again. And that's when the transformation begins. Maybe it's guilt, maybe he sees the daughter he never got to raise, maybe it's the stubborn innocence So-mi carries into every room. That small flickering light she refuses to let go of. Whatever the reason, she's the only person who made him feel anything in years. Joy, hope, fear, annoyance. And sometimes feeling something is enough to pull a broken man back into life. There's a moment where Tae-sik crashes into a window and lands in a net, suspended between the ground and the air. 10 years ago, it was just an incredible stunt. Now it feels like a metaphor. He's caught between the ghost he used to be and the knight he's about to become. Up to this point, everything he has done has been reactive, defensive, reluctant, restrained. But at the moment in the net, this is his pivot point, his decision point. He's no longer avoiding violence. He's stepping into the role she drew for him, the knight from nowhere. Back then, I saw a stylish revenge thriller. Now I see the grief behind every movement. The way he says he only lives for today, the tunnel vision, the willingness to die as long as she lives. These are the marks of a man who has already lost everything once and refuses to let it happen again. As you get older, you recognize those signs. The numbness, the self-sacrifice, the moment when a straightforward hug makes your whole body collapse under the weight you've been carrying. So-mi, meanwhile, falls from neglect into betrayal straight into horror. Yet she still leaves a mark, even in the darkest corners of the world. That's the thing about watching this movie a decade later. You realize how much life reshapes your understanding. How scenes you once saw at school now feel like tragedies. How a character you once admired becomes someone you empathize with. How a child you thought needed saving was the one who was saving the protagonist all along. The film hasn't changed, you have. And that's why The Man from Nowhere hits harder today. Because now you understand the loss, love, and the desperate hope of being someone's knight, even if only for a moment. That could be the quiet truth of this film. Sometimes the smallest bond with the smallest person is enough to pull you out of the darkest places. And that's what stories really do. They grow with us and reveal the parts of ourselves we didn't know were waiting to be seen.